The bright blue light on Commander Hyun-Ki Park's desk blinked 3 times before settling into a steady pulse. He looked up from his reports, dark eyes narrowing at the unusual signal pattern. 20 years in deep space monitoring had taught him to recognize anomalies immediately. Jae-hoon, he called to his second-in-command, "Are you seeing this?" Lieutenant Ji-hoon Kang was already analyzing the data stream, his fingers moving quickly across the holographic interface. "Yes, sir. The signal originated from Ta City, approximately 12 light-years away. But this isn't random cosmic noise." Park moved to stand behind Jae-hoon. The signal's pattern repeated with mathematical precision. Prime numbers, followed by a more complex sequence that reminded Park of old Earth binary code. "Run it through the universal translator," Park ordered, his voice calm despite the adrenaline now coursing through him. First contact. After all these years of searching the stars, someone was reaching out. The station hummed with activity as word spread. Analysts and communication specialists gathered around the main deck, their faces lit by the blue glow of monitoring screens. Earth's unified defense force had been formed after the resource wars of 2149, when humanity nearly destroyed itself fighting over what remained of their planet's dwindling supplies. The wars had forced cooperation, and in their aftermath, humanity had turned its gaze toward the stars with renewed purpose. "Commander," Jae-hoon called, his voice tight with excitement. "The translator has decoded part of the message. It's—" He paused, swallowing hard. "It's a distress call." Park leaned forward, reading the decoded text as it appeared on screen. Asterisked, "To any spacefaring civilization receiving this message. We are the Lumari of the 3rd planet in the Ta City system. Our world faces extinction at the hands of the Vorax, a predatory species that consumes all in its path. We have observed your civilization and believe you possess the necessary qualities to help us survive. We beg for your assistance before it is too late." Asterisk. Attached to the message was data, images of crystalline beings that seemed to emit light from within, and terrifying footage of massive biomechanical creatures tearing through what appeared to be cities of crystal and light. Park felt something cold settle in his stomach as he watched a Vorax ship, an enormous construction of metal and organic matter, descend upon a Lumari settlement. The footage ended abruptly. "When was this sent?" Park asked. "Based on the signal degradation and distance, approximately 11 years ago," Jae-hoon replied. "The message continues with technical data about the Vorax ships and Lumari defenses." Park straightened his uniform. "Contact Earth Central Command immediately. Wake up the World Council if necessary. This isn't something I can decide alone." Within hours, the entire command structure of Earth's government and military was in emergency session. Park stood before the World Council, 50 leaders representing Earth's unified nations, his presentation displaying the Lumari distress call, and all accompanying data. "We've spent centuries wondering if we're alone in the universe," Park said, his voice echoing in the large chamber. "Now we know we're not, and our first contact is a cry for help." Counselor Mina Song from the Eastern Alliance raised her hand. "Commander Park, how can we be certain this isn't a trap? These Vorax could be using the Lumari message to lure us into a conflict." "The risk exists," Park admitted, "but our analysis suggests the message is genuine. The Lumari have included detailed information about their society, technology, and the Vorax threat. They'd been observing us since before the resource wars, studying our broadcasts and transmissions. They believe humans possess something unique, a combination of technological innovation and what they call necessary ferocity to stand against the Vorax. And what if we ignore this?" asked Counselor Taho Kim from the Pacific Coalition. Park took a deep breath. "The Lumari data shows the Vorax systematically consuming planet after planet, strip mining resources, and absorbing any useful technology before moving on. Their path of expansion, if it continues, will reach our solar system within 50 years. The room fell silent as the implications settled in. "We have no right to ignore this," Park continued, his voice growing stronger. If we turn our backs now, we not only condemn the Lumari, but potentially ourselves. Humanity has just begun to heal from our own wars. We've started to reach for the stars again. Are we going to let our first act in the larger universe be one of cowardice? Debates raged for days. Military strategists argued over capabilities, scientists pored over the Lumari technical data, and ethicists debated the moral implications. The Unified Defense Force ran simulations of potential engagements based on the Lumari's information about Vorax capabilities. Park barely slept during this time, working tirelessly to address concerns and provide information. When not in meetings, he found himself returning to the original message, studying the images of the Lumari, beings of light and crystal, a civilization built on harmony and art, now facing extinction. 7 days after receiving the signal, Park was called before the final session of the World Council. "Commander Park," said Council President Su Jin-yoon, her face solemn. "After careful consideration of all factors, the World Council has reached a decision regarding the Lumari distress call." Park stood at attention, his heart pounding. "Earth will answer this call," she announced. "We are authorizing Operation Distant Shield, the construction and deployment of Earth's first interstellar defense fleet." The room erupted in a mixture of applause and concerned murmurs. "We recognize the risks," President Yoon continued once the noise had subsided. "But we also recognize our responsibility, both to the Lumari and to the future of humanity. The Vorax threat cannot be ignored." Park felt a weight lift from his shoulders, replaced by the even heavier burden of what was to come. "Commander Park, you will oversee this operation," President Yoon said. "You have 1 year to prepare our forces. Choose your best people. Earth's finest ships and weapons will be at your disposal." Later that night, Park stood alone in the observatory of the Deep Space Monitoring Station, looking toward the faint star that was Ta Ceti. Somewhere around that distant point of light, crystalline beings were fighting for survival, waiting for help they weren't sure would ever come. "We're coming," he whispered to the stars. "Humanity is coming." He didn't know if they could win against a force as terrible as the Vorax. He didn't know how many would die in the attempt, but he knew humanity had to try. After nearly destroying themselves in the resource wars, perhaps this was humanity's chance for redemption. To protect rather than destroy, to save rather than consume. Earth would answer the call with everything they had. Captain Sun Ho Kim stood on the bridge of the Thermopylae, his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the massive view screen. The quantum jump point glowed ahead, a swirling blue vortex that would take them 12 light-years from Earth in an instant. Behind them, the remaining 29 ships of Operation Prometheus waited in perfect formation. "Jump preparations complete, Captain," reported Lieutenant Jin Woo, his fingers dancing across the control panel. "All ships report ready status." Kim nodded, his face revealing nothing of the storm inside him. 6 months. 6 months since Commander Park had chosen him to lead this mission. 6 months of brutal training, of retrofitting Earth's best ships with weapons designed from Lumari specifications, of selecting the finest soldiers and brightest minds humanity had to offer. "Open fleet-wide communication," Kim ordered. "Channel open, sir." Kim looked at the faces of his bridge crew, young, determined, afraid but not showing it. They reminded him of his own squad during the resource wars, before the bombing that took his wife and daughter, before he had nothing left to lose. "This is Captain Kim," he began, his voice carrying to every ship in the fleet. "In moments, we will make the jump to Ta Ceti. Many of you have families waiting for your return. Remember them. But also remember why we're here. The Lumari didn't ask us to fight their war. They asked us to help them survive. If the Vorax are not stopped, Earth could be next." He paused, seeing the determination hardening in the eyes of his crew. "Sometimes salvation requires destruction," he continued. "We carry fire among the stars, both to burn away evil and to light the darkness. Whatever happens today, humanity will be remembered not just for our strength, but for our compassion, for standing against the darkness. He nodded to Jinwoo. Begin the jump sequence. The Thermopyla shuddered as its quantum drive engaged. The blue vortex expanded, engulfing the massive ship in pulsing energy. Kim felt the familiar sensation of his atoms being pulled apart and reassembled, like falling through ice water only to emerge in steam. Then, suddenly, stars reappeared. Different stars. The Ta Ceti system spread before them, its yellow sun similar to Earth's own. But the similarities ended there. "My God," whispered Commander Yunji, the ship's second-in-command. The Lumari weren't exaggerating. The once beautiful system had been transformed into a war zone. Debris from shattered moons and destroyed ships formed rings around the planets. And there, orbiting the third world, Elysium, were the Vorax blockade ships. They looked like massive hives, partly mechanical and partly organic, pulsing with sickly green energy. Dozens of them, each larger than Earth's biggest cities. "All ships have completed the jump, Captain," Jinwoo reported, his voice tight. "Combat systems online." "Tactical assessment," Kim ordered. Yeonji stepped forward, her eyes scanning the sensor data. The Vorax blockade surrounds approximately 60% of the planet. They seem to be methodically moving from the northern hemisphere downward. The southern continent still appears intact. Life signs. Significant Lumari population readings from the southern continent. Minimal readings elsewhere. She looked up, her eyes haunted. "Sir, if these readings are correct, the Vorax have already harvested almost 70% of the planet." Kim's jaw tightened. "Open a channel to the Lumari defense network." Moments passed in tense silence. Then suddenly, the main view screen flickered. A being of crystal and light appeared, humanoid in basic shape, but clearly alien. Light pulsed through its transparent body in complex patterns, and its voice, when it spoke, sounded like wind through crystal. "Humans of Earth," the Lumari said, its patterns of light quickening. "You came. We had begun to lose hope. I am Captain Sun Ho Kim of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your message and have come to help. I am Guardian Luminous, last defender of the Southern Sanctuary. The Vorax breached our orbital defenses 1 solar cycle ago. They have consumed most of our northern cities. The southern shield cannot hold much longer." Before Kim could respond, a new signal cut through their communication. The view screen split, showing a new image that made several crew members gasp. The Vorax commander was a massive amalgamation of mechanical parts and organic matter, its multiple eyes glowing with the same sickly green as its ships. "Unidentified vessels," the Vorax communicated, its voice a grating mixture of electronic noise and organic sounds. "This harvest is already in progress. Leave or be consumed. This is not your concern." Kim stepped forward, his face hard. "We are humanity. We make everything our concern." The Vorax's eyes pulsed brighter. "Your species is unknown to us. Your technology is primitive. Your defiance is interesting. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own." The communication cut off abruptly. "They've launched harvester ships," Yeonji reported, her voice steady despite the fear evident in her eyes. "Hundreds of them, approaching from all Vorax high ships." Kim turned to face his crew. "This is what we prepared for. Tactical formations as planned. Remember your training." The bridge erupted into activity as orders were relayed throughout the fleet. The 30 Earth ships, small compared to the massive Vorax hives, moved with precision into defensive formations. "Nova missiles armed," reported the weapons officer. "Quantum disruptors at full charge." Kim watched the approaching Vorax harvesters on the tactical display. They moved like insects, swarming toward the human fleet with single-minded purpose. "They think we're easy prey," Kim said quietly. "Let's show them how humanity fights when everything is on the line." He raised his hand, waiting until the harvesters reached the precise distance calculated from the Lumari data. The bridge was silent except for the soft beeping of sensors. "Fire." The space between the fleets erupted with light as Earth's ships unleashed their first volley. Nova missiles, designed specifically to disrupt the Vorax neural network, detonated in brilliant blue explosions. Harvester ships spasmed and drifted, their green lights flickering out. But there were hundreds more coming. Second wave approaching, Yunji warned. They're adjusting their approach pattern. Kim nodded. As expected. Execute Maneuver Thunderbolt. The Earth fleet suddenly split apart, the ships moving in seemingly random directions. The Vorax harvesters, programmed to attack in formation, faltered momentarily at the unexpected tactic. They think like a hive, Kim had told his captains during planning. We need to think like wolves. The Thermopylae dove directly toward one of the smaller Vorax high ships, weapons firing continuously. 3 Earth destroyers followed in its wake, concentrating their fire on the same target. The high ship's outer shell cracked, spilling green energy into space. The harvesters nearest to it suddenly froze, as if confused. It's working, Yunji said, a note of hope in her voice. The Lumari data was correct. The harvesters are controlled by the high ships. Kim allowed himself a small smile. Target the next high ship. Tell the fleet to continue the Wolfpack strategy. For the next hour, the battle raged across the orbit of Elysium. Earth ships darted between the massive Vorax vessels, striking with precision before retreating. The Vorax, used to overwhelming enemies with sheer numbers, struggled to adapt to humanity's unpredictable tactics. But they were learning, and there were so many of them. Captain, Jin Woo called out, his voice strained. The Madrid and the New Delhi have been destroyed. The Sydney reports critical damage. Kim's face remained impassive, though each lost ship tore at his heart. Maintain formation. Focus fire on the command hive. The Thermopylae shuddered as a harvester blast struck its shields. Shields at 40%, someone reported. Kim watched the tactical display. They had destroyed 3 high ships and damaged several others. But the Vorax were adapting, closing their formation to protect their command vessel. Sir, Yunji said quietly, stepping close to him. We can't win this battle conventionally. Kim met her eyes and nodded once. They had discussed this possibility during the planning phase, the contingency that no one wanted to consider. Prepare the Phoenix Protocol, he ordered, and open a channel to Guardian Luminous. As the battle continued around them, Kim explained the desperate plan to the Lumari defender. When he finished, there was a long silence. You would sacrifice so much for a people not your own. Luminous finally asked. Kim looked around at his crew, humans from every corner of Earth, fighting together for a species they had never met before today. This is what humanity does, he said simply. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We carry fire among the stars. The Thermopylae turned toward the heart of the Vorax fleet, its engines burning bright against the darkness of space. The shuttle from the Thermopylae descended through Elysium's atmosphere, carrying Captain Sunho Kim and a small team of human representatives. Below them, the southern continent gleamed like shattered diamond under the light of Ta City. Crystal spires reached toward the sky, while dome-shaped structures pulsed with soft blue energy. It was beautiful in a way Earth cities had never been. Fragile, luminous, alive. Approaching landing coordinates, Lieutenant Minji reported from the pilot's seat. Lumari guide beacons are active. Kim nodded, adjusting the environmental suit he wore. Tests had shown Elysium's atmosphere was breathable for humans, but protocol demanded caution during first physical contact. The rest of his team, Dr. Du Yun, their xenobiologist, Major Taiyang, head of security, and Ensign Hejun, their communications specialist, were similarly equipped. Remember, Kim said to his team, we've won the first skirmish, but not the war. The Vorax are regrouping. We need the Lumari's knowledge. The shuttle touched down on a circular platform that glowed with soft light. As the door opened, Kim saw them. A group of Lumari waiting in formation. Up close, they were even more extraordinary than in transmissions. Their crystalline bodies stood roughly human height, but were semi-transparent, with complex light patterns flowing through them like blood through veins. Each Lumari's pattern was unique, shifting colors that seemed to reflect their emotional state. Kim stepped forward first, removing his helmet as a gesture of trust after the atmospheric sensors confirmed it was safe. The leading Lumari, taller than the others, with predominantly blue light patterns, moved to meet him. "I am Meridian, Elder of the Southern Sanctuary," the Lumari communicated. Though its mouth didn't move, Kim heard the words clearly in his mind, accompanied by subtle harmonics that conveyed emotions beyond mere language. "Captain Sun Ho Kim of Earth," he replied with a small bow. "We come in peace and in answer to your call." Meridian's lights pulsed brighter. "We did not know if you would come," the Elder communicated. "We have watched your species' violent history with both fear and fascination." "Our capacity for violence," Kim replied, maintaining steady eye contact with the crystalline being, "is matched only by our determination to protect those who cannot protect themselves." The Lumari around Meridian pulsed with colors, some blue, some purple, some with flashes of gold, a conversation happening at light speed. Finally, Meridian gestured toward a large domed structure. "Please, join us in the Hall of Reflections. There is much to share and little time." Inside the structure, Kim and his team found themselves surrounded by what appeared to be stars, a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with certain systems glowing red. Each red light represents a civilization consumed by the Vorax, Meridian explained. "They began in the outer rim 300 of your years ago. At first, we thought them merely another aggressive species. We were wrong." Dr. Du Yun stepped forward, her eyes wide. "Your records indicate they've destroyed over 70 civilizations." "Consumed," Meridian corrected, lights dimming to a somber purple. "The Vorax do not simply destroy. They absorb useful technology and biological material, adding it to their collective. Everything else is converted to energy to fuel their expansion." Meridian guided them toward a central crystal that projected images as the Elder spoke. "We Lumari evolved as philosophers and artists. Our civilization is built on harmony rather than conflict. For millennia, we explored the cosmos through thought projection rather than physical travel." The crystal showed beautiful images of Lumari achievements, cities that sang with light, art that seemed alive, and mathematical equations of stunning complexity. "When the Vorax came, we had no defenses. We tried communication. They responded only with hunger. We offered knowledge. They took it by force. Half our population was consumed before we managed to establish the Southern Shield." Major Tai Yong studied the tactical displays with a professional eye. "Your shield technology is impressive. How have you sustained it against their attacks?" "It draws power from our collective consciousness," Meridian explained. "But we grow fewer each day. The shield weakens." "And why did you call Earth specifically?" Kim asked the question that had been bothering him since the mission began. Meridian's lights shifted to a complex pattern of gold and white. "We have observed many species across the galaxy. Most are either too peaceful to fight effectively or too aggressive to wield power responsibly. Humanity is unique." The crystal displayed images of Earth's history, beautiful achievements alongside terrible wars, great compassion alongside brutal violence. "You create and destroy with equal passion. You fight fiercely, but can show mercy. You are adaptable in ways the Vorax cannot comprehend. They evolve by consumption. You evolve through innovation." Before Kim could respond, an alarm sounded. Both Lumari and humans turned as a younger Lumari rushed into the chamber, its lights pulsing rapid red. "The Vorax fleet has reformed," it communicated urgently. They approached the shield from multiple vectors. Kim's communicator beeped. "Captain," came Commander Yunji's voice from the thermopila. "Vorax ships are on the move. They've adapted their formation. Our previous tactics won't work twice. Return to the shuttle. Kim ordered his team. Meridian, we need to continue this discussion from my ship. As they raced back to the landing platform, the sky above them darkened. The Vorax ships moved with predatory grace, their biomechanical forms flowing through space like hungry sharks. Unlike the rigid, metallic design of human vessels, the Vorax ships appeared partially alive. Green energy pulsing through organic-looking vessels reinforced with metals harvested from conquered worlds. "They're testing the shield," Meridian communicated as they watched energy weapons impact the blue barrier protecting the southern continent. Learning its frequency, its weaknesses. Once aboard the Thermopylae, Kim immediately convened his tactical team, with Meridian joining via holographic projection. The ship's main display showed the Vorax fleet's new formation, no longer the tight cluster they had first encountered, but spread in smaller groups that would be harder to target with the tactics that had worked earlier. "They're adapting," said Commander Yunji, "learning from each encounter." "Then we must be more unpredictable," Kim replied. "Separate the fleet into 5 tactical groups. Random movement patterns, constantly shifting targets." The battle erupted within minutes. The human fleet split according to Kim's orders, each group attacking from different vectors, never staying in one formation long enough for the Vorax to predict their movements. It confused the hive mind temporarily, but the Vorax were quick learners. From the Thermopylae's bridge, Kim watched as 2 human ships were caught by Vorax energy beams, their hulls breach almost instantly. The crew's faces were grim, but determined. They had known the odds before volunteering. "Sir," called the sensor officer, "the Vorax flagship is moving into position above the Lumeri capital. They're deploying harvester drones." The main screen showed the massive Vorax command vessel, 3 times larger than any other ship in their fleet, positioning itself above the weakest section of the Lumeri shield. From its underside, hundreds of smaller craft were emerging, each designed to penetrate the shield and extract Lumeri for processing. If they breach the capital, they'll access the Lumeri's central consciousness network, Meridian communicated, its lights now a desperate, pulsing red. "They will consume our collective knowledge in hours." Kim looked at the tactical display, calculating distances and trajectories. The NOVA bomb, Earth's newest weapon, designed specifically from Lumeri data to disrupt the Vorax neural network, was their most powerful asset. But to use it effectively against the flagship, they would need to get dangerously close. "Yunji," Kim said quietly, "plot an intercept course. Maximum speed." Her eyes widened. "Sir, at that velocity, our shields won't hold against their defenses. We'd be exposed." "I know." Kim turned to face his crew. "This is voluntary. Anyone who wishes to remain behind may transfer to another vessel." Not a single crew member moved. "Very well." Kim nodded once, pride evident in his eyes. "Battle stations. Arm the NOVA bomb." The Thermopylae's engines flared brilliantly as it broke formation, accelerating directly toward the Vorax flagship. The massive enemy vessel, focused on deploying its harvesters, detected the approach too late to fully redirect its defenses. "They're targeting us," reported the tactical officer, voice steady despite the danger. "Shields at 60%, 50%. Hold course," Kim ordered. "Get us between those harvesters and the shield." The Thermopylae shuddered violently as Vorax weapons fire tore into its shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as systems failed under the assault. "Shields at 20%. Hull breach on decks 5 through 8. Kim gripped his command chair as the ship lurched sideways from a direct hit. "Distance to target. 2,000 meters, sir. Arm the NOVA bomb. Prepare for manual detonation." Yunji looked at him sharply. "Sir, at that range, we'll be caught in the disruption field." "I know." Kim's face was calm. "But so will they." The Thermopylae dove between the Vorax flagship and the Lumeri shield, its hull now directly exposed to enemy fire as the shields finally collapsed. The harvester drones, confused by the suicidal maneuver, scattered momentarily. "Now," Kim ordered. The NOVA bomb launched, its specialized payload designed not to destroy matter but to disrupt the complex neural network that allowed the Vorax to function as a collective. As it detonated, a wave of blue energy expanded outward, engulfing both the Vorax flagship and the Thermopylae. On the bridge, systems failed instantly. Emergency lights flickered on as crew members picked themselves up from the floor. Outside, the effect on the Vorax was immediate and devastating. The flagship's green energy pulses faltered and died. The harvester drones drifted aimlessly, their connection to the hive mind severed. For the first time since they had entered the Ta-CD system, the Vorax attack paused. But the cost had been enormous. The Thermopylae drifted, heavily damaged, its engines dead and life support failing. Kim looked around at his injured crew, at the smoking consoles and damaged systems. They had bought time. But the war was far from over. "Send word to the fleet," he ordered, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "The Vorax can be beaten. They can be confused. They can be disrupted." He turned to look at the view screen, where the disabled Vorax flagship now drifted, its green lights flickering as it struggled to recover. And most importantly, they can be afraid. The emergency medical bay aboard the Thermopylae hummed with activity as doctors treated the wounded. Captain Sun Ho Kim sat on the edge of a bed, wincing as a medic sealed the gash on his forehead. "You should rest, Captain," the doctor said. Kim shook his head. "Not yet. Status report." Commander Yoonji approached, her uniform torn and dirty, a data pad in her hands. "It's not good, sir. 5 ships destroyed. The Cairo, Mumbai, Stockholm, Rio, and Nairobi. All gone with their crews. 7 more ships heavily damaged, including us. Casualties." Yoonji's voice wavered slightly. "Initial count shows 3,218 dead, 1,500 wounded." Kim closed his eyes briefly. Each number was a person, a family left behind on Earth. He had known there would be losses, but the reality hit harder than he'd expected. The Vorax flagship. Disabled but not destroyed. "Our sensors show internal activity. They're repairing themselves." Yoonji hesitated. "And there's something else. Long-range scanners have detected a massive energy signature approaching from the outer system. It appears to be Vorax reinforcements." "How many?" "At least 3 times our initial contact. They'll reach Elysium in approximately 72 hours. Kim stood, ignoring the pain. "We need to get to the surface. The Lumere may have information we can use." "Yes, it would be a suicide mission." Kim turned to Dr. Lee. "How quickly could you develop this modified resonance technology?" "With the Lumere scientists' help. Maybe 48 hours. But Captain, getting it to the Vorax command node would be nearly impossible. Their reinforcements will arrive before then, and our fleet is in no condition to face them." Kim's face hardened with determination. "Then we don't fight them directly. We need a small team. Volunteers who can infiltrate the command node while our remaining ships engage the Armada as a distraction." Over the next day, a plan formed. In the Lumere Science Complex, Dr. Lee worked without rest alongside the crystalline aliens, developing what they call the Liberation Signal, a modified version of the Lumari harmonic resonance technology designed to disrupt the parasitic programming without harming the Vorax themselves. Meanwhile, engineers repaired what ships they could. The Thermopylae, too damaged for combat, was retrofitted with stealth technology borrowed from Earth's recon vessels. It would carry the infiltration team. A small group of volunteers with the skills needed to reach the Vorax command node. 48 hours after the initial battle, Kim addressed the assembled volunteers in the Thermopylae's damaged hangar bay. 20 men and women, pilots, engineers, soldiers, and scientists, stood at attention. "What I'm asking of you goes beyond duty," Kim said, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. "The chances of returning from this mission are minimal. I won't order anyone to go." Major Tai Yong stepped forward, his face solemn. With respect, Captain, we all volunteered knowing the risks. The Vorax will reach Earth eventually, if we don't stop them here. Kim nodded, pride and sorrow mingling in his chest. Then let me explain the mission one final time. He activated a holographic display showing the approaching Vorax armada. At its center was a massive ship, 3 times larger than the flagship they had disabled earlier. This is their command vessel, the heart of the Vorax collective. While our remaining ships engage the armada, the Thermopylae will approach using stealth systems. We'll board through one of the harvester loading bays. He zoomed in on the ship's structure, highlighting a central chamber deep within. This is the command node, where the core of their hive mind is housed. Dr. Lee and her team have developed this. He held up a small crystalline device that pulsed with blue light. The liberation signal. Once uploaded to the command node, it will rewrite the parasitic programming that controls the Vorax. Not destroying them, but freeing them from their endless consumption directive. Dr. Lee stepped forward. The signal needs to be placed directly into their central neural matrix. Remote transmission won't work. Their systems would detect and block it. Once the signal is uploaded, how long until it takes effect? Asked one of the engineers. We don't know exactly, Dr. Lee admitted. Minutes, maybe seconds. The Lumari models suggest it will spread through their neural network like a wave. Kim looked at each volunteer, memorizing their faces. I won't lie to you. Most of us probably won't make it back. But if we succeed, we save not only the Lumari and potentially Earth, but the Vorax themselves. Major Taeyong straightened. When do we leave, Captain? The Vorax will reach Elysium in 18 hours. We launch in 6. Get some rest while you can. As the volunteers dispersed, Elder Meridian approached Kim, its crystalline form glowing softly in the dim light. Your people willingly sacrifice themselves for strangers. The Lumari communicated, a note of wonder in its mental voice. We watched humanity's violent history and feared you. Now we see that same intensity directed toward salvation. Kim looked at the damaged ship around them, thinking of the thousands already lost. That's who we are, Meridian. At our worst, we're capable of terrible destruction. But at our best, he held up the liberation signal device, watching its light pulse like a heartbeat. We'd rather save than destroy, even at great cost to ourselves. The Lumari's lights pulsed with what Kim had come to recognize as deep emotion. Whatever happens, Captain Kim, know that the Lumari will remember humanity's courage for as long as our crystals shine. The damaged Thermopylae drifted silently through space, its engines running on minimal power to avoid detection. Captain Sunho Kim stood on the bridge, watching the massive Vorax armada approach on the tactical display. Their numbers were staggering. Over 100 biomechanical ships surrounding the enormous command vessel at their center. Stealth systems functioning at 93%, reported Lieutenant Jinwoo. We should be invisible to their sensors. Kim nodded, his face showing none of the fear he felt inside. The 20 volunteers of his infiltration team were ready in the hangar bay, checking their equipment one final time. Dr. Ji-Woo Lee was among them. The liberation signal device secured in a special container that would protect it until the moment of upload. The main fleet is in position, Commander Yunji said. Admiral Yoon signals they're ready to engage on your mark. Kim touched the communications panel. This is Captain Kim to all Earth vessels. You know your mission. Keep the Vorax occupied and draw attention away from the Thermopylae. Buy us enough time to reach the command node. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. Whatever happens today, remember why we came. Not just to fight, but to save. Good luck. Kim out. With the communication ended, he turned to Yunji. You have the bridge, Commander. Get our team as close as possible, then withdraw to minimum safe distance. She stood straighter. Sir, I request permission to join the infiltration team. Denied. If we fail, someone needs to get word back to Earth. Their eyes met in silent understanding. Then Kim headed to the hangar bay where his team waited. Each wore a specialized combat suit designed from Lumeri specifications to resist Vorax detection. Each carried weapons and equipment for the mission ahead. Major Tai Yong saluted as Kim approached. "Team is ready, Captain." Kim looked at their faces, determined, afraid but not showing it. Dr. Lee stood near the transport shuttle, the container with the liberation signal clutched tightly in her hands. Once more over the plan, Kim said, "We approach in the shuttle while the Vorax are engaged with our fleet. We enter through Harvester Bay 12, which should be minimally defended during battle operations. We proceed to the central core and locate the neural nexus." Dr. Lee uploads the signal. "We withdraw the same way we came in." No one mentioned what they all knew. That withdrawal was the least likely part of the plan to succeed. "Any questions?" Kim asked. There were none. They had trained for this mission for the past 2 days, studying Lumeri data on Vorax ship layouts and defense systems. Everything that could be prepared had been prepared. "Then let's move out." As they boarded the shuttle, the first explosions lit up space around them. The Earth fleet, reinforced with Lumeri defense systems, had engaged the Vorax armada. Brilliant flashes of energy weapons and Nova missiles created a chaotic battlefield. Exactly the distraction they needed. The shuttle launched, its stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible among the debris and energy discharges of the battle. Kim watched through the view screen as Earth ships darted between the massive Vorax vessels, employing hit-and-run tactics to draw attention away from the Thermopylae. "Approaching Harvester Bay 12, the pilot reported. "No active defenses detected." The shuttle slipped into the massive opening on the side of the Vorax command vessel, a hangar designed for the return of harvester drones. Inside, the walls pulsed with sickly green energy, illuminating what looked like a mixture of technology and living tissue. "Remember, minimal weapons discharge," Kim ordered as they disembarked. "Sound travels differently through their biomechanical structure. We don't want to alert the entire ship." They moved through the corridors in silence, following the path memorized from Lumeri maps. Occasionally, they encountered Vorax drones, small worker units that maintained the ship's systems. Major Tai Yong dispatched these with silent efficiency, using a blade rather than energy weapons. As they penetrated deeper into the ship, the corridors began to pulse more intensely. The walls themselves seemed alive, reacting to their presence with subtle movements. "The ship knows we're here," Dr. Lee whispered, checking the container holding the liberation signal. "It's sensing us as foreign bodies." "Keep moving," Kim ordered. "We don't have much time." The ship suddenly shuddered violently, nearly knocking them off their feet. "What was that?" someone asked. Kim's communicator crackled. "Captain, this is Yenji. The Vorax are using some kind of gravitational weapon against our fleet. The Seoul and Beijing have been destroyed. Admiral Yoon reports they can't hold them off much longer." "Understood. Maintain distraction as long as possible." Kim cut the communication and turned to his team. "We need to move faster." They doubled their pace, no longer concerned with remaining undetected. Soon, they encountered more resistance, larger Vorax drones equipped with weapons. The corridor filled with the sound of energy weapons as the team fought their way forward. 3 of their number fell in the first engagement, 4 more in the second. By the time they reached the central core of the ship, only Kim, Dr. Lee, Major Tai Yong, and 2 others remained. The neural nexus was unlike anything they had expected, a massive chamber filled with what looked like green lightning, arcing between crystalline structures. At the center floated what appeared to be a brain, enormous, partially mechanical, pulsing with the same sickly green energy that powered the ships. "That's it," Dr. Lee said, her voice filled with awe and horror. "The core of the Vorax hive mind." "How do we get the signal to it?" Kim asked, eyeing the lightning that filled the room. "I need to reach that control panel." She pointed to a structure near the brain. "It's their primary input node, but these energy discharges." Major Tai Yong studied the pattern of the lightning. "It's not random. There's a rhythm to it. He pointed. There, a 3-second gap every 15 seconds. Not enough time to cross, one of the remaining team members said. It is if we create a diversion, Taeyong replied. He looked at Kim. Sir, if we overload our weapons on the opposite side of the chamber, it should draw the energy discharges toward that point. Kim understood immediately, creating a safe path to the input node. But whoever triggers the overload won't make it out, the Major added quietly. Before Kim could respond, the ship rocked with another massive impact. His communicator came to life with Yunji's voice, now filled with static. Captain, fleet taking heavy losses, Vorax breaking through to Elysium. Not much time left. Kim made his decision. I'll trigger the overload. Dr. Lee, you and Taeyong deliver the signal. Sir, the Major began to protest. That's an order, Major. Kim's voice was firm. Earth needs to know what happened here. One of us needs to try to make it back. He removed his weapons pack and began setting the overload sequence. On my mark, you'll have approximately 20 seconds to reach the node and upload the signal before the system detects the intrusion. Dr. Lee opened the container, revealing the crystalline device that pulsed with blue lumary light. It will work, Captain. I know it will. Kim nodded once, then turned to the far side of the chamber. 3, 2, 1, mark. He sprinted across the chamber, dodging energy discharges until he reached the far wall. There, he slammed his overloaded weapons pack against the pulsing surface and stepped back. The effect was immediate. The green lightning intensified, drawn to the building energy surge. Across the chamber, Dr. Lee and Major Taeyong rushed toward the input node, the liberation signal clutched in her hands. They reached it just as Kim's weapons detonated in a blinding flash of light. The ship screamed. There was no other way to describe the sound that reverberated through its structure. Dr. Lee placed the liberation signal into the input node, where it sank into the biomechanical tissue as if being absorbed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the green energy throughout the chamber began to flicker, changing color, first to purple, then to blue. The massive brain at the center convulsed, lightning of different colors shooting from it in all directions. It's working. Dr. Lee shouted over the growing chaos. The ship lurched violently, throwing them to the floor. Sections of the ceiling began to collapse as the structure started breaking apart. We need to get back to the shuttle, Taeyong shouted, helping Dr. Lee to her feet. But Kim knew it was too late. The path back was already blocked by debris, and throughout the ship, the liberation was spreading. The parasitic programming burning away under the influence of the Lumari harmonics. Across the Tau CD system, the effect rippled outward through the Vorax neural network. Ships froze in mid-attack, their green energy flickering to blue. Some exploded as conflicting directives tore through their systems. Others simply went dormant, the corrupted programming releasing its hold. On the bridge of the Thermopylae, Commander Yunji watched in amazement as the Vorax armada dissolved into chaos. They did it, she whispered. Back on Elysium, Elder Meridian observed the battle from the Lumeric control center. The patterns of light flowing through the crystalline being shifted to colors never before seen by human eyes. A complex mixture of joy, sorrow, and profound gratitude. Days later, the survivors gathered on Elysium's surface. Of the 30 ships that had come from Earth, only 11 remained. Thousands of humans and Lumari had been lost. And the infiltration team, Captain Kim, Dr. Lee, and their brave companions, had not returned. Elder Meridian stood before the assembled forces, its form glowing with solemn light. You came when we called, bringing fire and fury to our enemies. But your greatest gift was not your weapons, but your compassion, your refusal to annihilate even those who sought to destroy us. The Elder gestured to where several Vorax units now stood, no longer green with parasitic energy, but glowing with a soft blue light. Free. Your Captain Kim and his team gave their lives not just to save us, but to save beings who sought to destroy them. This is a courage we Lumari have forgotten was possible. In the months that followed, humans and Lumari worked together to rebuild. Some Vorax, freed from their parasitic programming, joined them, offering knowledge and technology in atonement for what they have been forced to do. The alliance formed between the three species would reshape galactic civilization. Humanity's protective instinct, combined with Lumari wisdom and Vorax technology, created a new force in the universe, one that would answer any cry for salvation with both the necessary fire to defend and the light to heal. 1 year after the battle, Commander Hyun-Ki Park stood on the bridge of Earth's newest ship, the Kim, named for the captain who had led the mission to Ta City. Behind him, a mixed crew of humans, Lumari and reformed Vorax worked together in harmony. As Commander Park later wrote in her memoirs, "We went to the stars carrying humanity's oldest tools, fire to destroy, fire to illuminate, fire to forge something new. In saving others, we found our true purpose among the stars."